August 26th of 2017. Believe it or not, it's been a little bit since Floyd Mayweather took on the UFC ultra megastar Conor McGregor, boxer versus MMA guy. This is really one of the first prominent ones of these that had happened. It was a humongous fight, and you were there as Mayweather got the stoppage back that night. Now in 2017, tell me all about the spectacle, the buildup.
Oh,
You were telling us earlier in the podcast about the buildup. McGregor was selling this thing all over the place in the press conferences, etc.
this
So
this was
take off and
ridiculous.
go.
This whole thing. First of all, I maintain to this day that anytime there's a fight that the Nevada Commission turns down, they should look at this fight and not have an excuse because they actually approved this fight between the greatest fighter of his generation, who was 49-0 and the pound for pound superstar, even though he was coming out of a 2-year retirement, against a guy making his boxing professional debut. It should, again, I'll it happened, and whatever happened happened. But I'll die in the hill, in my opinion. The fight never should have been sanctioned. This was the Nevada State Athletic Commission wanting the event in Las Vegas. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure from the different business entities involved with this event, but nonetheless, they talked about this. They shit talked each other. I don't know if the people can Google it. It takes 2 seconds. Conor McGregor showing up in March. I guess it was earlier this year, or maybe I guess it was this year. Maybe it was 2016. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was several months before the fight happened. Showed up at Madison Square Garden in the theater on the night that his buddy and countryman Michael Conlon, the Olympic star, made his professional debut on a top rank card at the Madison Square Garden Theater. I was there. It was the night before a big Triple G fight in the main arena. And that was the night where Conor McGregor came running to ringside right after the fight and got right in my face. And are you the because a lot of guys that were there covering it, he knew because they covered boxing as well as MMA. But when he asked one of the publicists, who's the boxing guy, and he pointed to me, he came running out of the ring and dropped down right in front of my spot in the front row of the press section, and started shouting at me. I mean, I wasn't like scared. It was kind of humorous. Are you the boxing guy? Oh, I'm the boxing guy. And he went on this whole tirade about how he's going to do damage to Floyd Mayweather. It was caught on video, viral. I wound up in the Sports
This
Center
is why
studio
in your
at 2 in
social
the
media
morning.
bio, you're referring to yourself as Conor McGregor, calling you the boxing
That
guy.
is 100% correct. So
That's where that
while
came
he
from.
went out to party after that whole thing, I was then asked to go to a studio in Manhattan at like 2 o'clock in the morning to do some work on Sports Center at that time because it became such a huge thing. Now you fast forward however many months later, that was in March because it was St. Patrick's Day. So now we're here in August, I guess, and the fight's happening. Now, before the fight, they went on that wild press tour all over the place, and they put like 20,000 people in arenas to watch them march around the stage and do a quote unquote press conference and curse at each other and say bad words and say very misogynistic things and violent things and call each other names. It was very unenjoyable for me anyway. I was dispatched by my editors at ESPN to go to New York City to cover the press tour stop at the Barclays Center, and I did that. And I was supposed to come home that same night, but because they were supposed to have the media availability for the two fighters before the formal thing, that did not happen. So they actually waited till afterwards. So I missed my train, had to get a hotel and stay over. It was a whole big thing. But the funny thing I remember about that is, so Conor McGregor and I had that thing with, the boxing guy nonsense, however many months earlier. Now I'm sitting in the media center or in the press room where they're doing the press conference for his media availability after the formal program. And I'm sitting there in the front row. And they say, they give you the microphone, please identify yourself before you ask your question. So I get the microphone, and as I'm about to say, I'm Dan Rafael from ESPN, Conor McGregor, who I'm sitting like 5 feet from right in front of him, he looks at me, he goes, oh, you the boxing guy. Like he
Mm-hmm.
remembered the whole incident from Madison Square Garden, from however many months earlier. So we had a good laugh about that. And now you fast forward to the fight. This was the biggest fucking thing in the world. I mean, you got the two biggest stars in their sport. Floyd's out of retirement. He's looking to go 50-0. Conor's been talking shit. How he's going to do this, that, and the other thing. He was massively popular within UFC, and they had the fight. It was a gargantuan.
And again, there's
gargantuan event.
intrigue. There's intrigue also in that in the timeline, Mayweather had fought Pacquiao
Oh
but
yeah,
then had not fought for 2 years and came out of retirement
yeah.
as you referenced at the beginning. So that was part of the buildup of, is he going to be rusty? Does McGregor have a chance at a lucky punch? Is McGregor going to go nuts and try to put a chokehold on him and tap him out like
That was
MMA? We didn't
actually a
know.
big part of the
Yeah,
lead up. Is
yeah,
what's going to happen if McGregor like forgets about the rules and just resorts to the UFC rules and the MMA rules and like tries to take him down or throw a spinning head kick or whatever they call that shit.
right.
So this was at T-Mobile Arena, massive crowd, massive event. And remember, if you go back, this was in 2017. The Pacquiao fight had taken place in 2015 when they fought that fight, which was not at T-Mobile. That was at the MGM Grand, but it set every conceivable revenue record in terms of the overall gross, the pay-per-view, the sponsors, the
Didn't they
international,
what was the live gate? It was just ridiculous.
the live gate. So this is the all-time record for Mayweather Pacquiao. The first of all, the fight itself generated roughly 650 million total revenue, including the most ever pay-per-views, which was like 4.6 million. The
Unreal.
gate and ticket sales for the MGM Grand, which by the way holds about 4,000 less people than the T-Mobile Arena. The gate for that fight was over $72 million. Now, put that in perspective.
Yes.
If you do a gate at T-Mobile or MGM or any big boxing event, if you hit 20 million, you're
Yes.
in rarefied air.
Right.
Rarefied air.
Because in and around that time, like Canelo and Triple G fought in and around the time of this McGregor.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what that
and
was.
That was like 25 or 30 million, or what was it?
The first fight, I forget the order, but one of the fights was about 24 million. The other one was about 26, 27.
And again, Pacquiao Mayweather was $72 million
that is
for
correct.
the live game. All right. So what was McGregor and Mayweather from?
So I'm going to get to that. So that holds all the records. And that was a fight that everybody wanted to see for years and years and years. The two best fighters of their era, both massively decorated, huge pay-per-views all along over the years against all this, many of the same opponents, including Oscar De La Hoya, who put both of them over, basically, to use the parlance of the WWE. Mayweather-McGregor, though, was such a mainstream event because you had the number one, or at least the most popular fighter in MMA, against the unretiring Floyd Mayweather, who was still, loomed over the sport in many respects. And they put on the massive fight. And while it didn't break the records that Floyd did with Manny, this was on a level that was like nothing else other than Manny versus Floyd. This fight did 4.3 million pay-per-views in the United States, second most ever. The gate, meaning the ticket sales, I told you the record is if you want to be exact, $72,198,500 for Mayweather Pacquiao. Conor McGregor and Floyd, $55,414,765.79.
You have it down to the penny.
Yes, sir.
That is a boatload of money on a live gate. When you consider that the modern fights now struggle to get 10 or 15 million, that's crazy.
So 4.3 million is still the second most ever pay-per-view sales ever for any combat event, or any event probably ever on pay-per-view, combat or otherwise. And the fight itself, everybody was sort of like, figured Floyd's going to win the fight pretty handily, but you also had in the back of your mind, like, what happens if McGregor lands some kind of big punch, because Floyd has been out of the ring for a while. And when the fight started, a lot of people felt like Conor won the first, second round. I've always maintained that if you thought that was the case, that was because Floyd was just there to sort of like see what he had and let him do what he could do and just sort of assess the situation. That Floyd, if he wanted to, probably could have started a lot quicker. So there was a palpable sort of feeling in the crowd that night, I remember, that, oh my God, McGregor is doing well. He's winning the fight after 2 rounds. And I kept thinking, like, dude, it doesn't make a difference. As soon as Floyd decides to start fighting, this fucking thing is over. And slowly but surely, Floyd picked up the pace, and he had him completely under control after like 2-3 rounds. And eventually, Floyd's never been a big puncher against anybody. Particularly, they're fighting at 150 pounds or so. Back when Floyd was fighting at a junior lightweight or lightweight, he's certainly at junior lightweight, he carried more power. But in the end, he just basically beat him down and ended up stopping him in the 10th round. And the good thing was, a lot of people thought that he carried him for a while. And even if you subscribe to that feeling, the good thing about this was, as much hype as this fight got, when people finally left the arena or turned off their TV or their screen or whatever they were viewing it on, I don't think anybody came away super disappointed, because it was actually entertaining. Now, if Floyd carried him, that may be one of the reasons why. Maybe he could have ended it sooner.
So I've told you this before, but I'll refresh you here, and I've shared this when we've talked about it before. I still vividly remember this. We're in the time frame in the month of August. We're in my fall work duties. I do Tampa Bay Buccaneers radio and their broadcasts, and we're always playing preseason games on the weekends in August. In this case, we don't have a preseason game this weekend. The next thing for Labor Day, the next thing is the regular season starting. But I still remember that night we had finished up on what's called the network pregame show, where all the stations are taking the network pregame show. I had been asked to fill in and help out on the post game show, Rayfield. So the post game show is happening, and I had bought the pay-per-view on my laptop, like what we're talking about right now. And
Mhm.
I still remember there was about 6 people crowded around my laptop while I'm
Yeah.
talking about the Buccaneer preseason game. And I still remember during one of the commercial breaks, after like the fifth or sixth round, I turned to the people that were around me. Again, this is a preseason game, the post game show. Who is listening to us, Rayfield, at midnight after this with the fight going on? I turned to the guys around me and I said, he is purposely trying to get him into the later rounds, wear him out, and knock him out. I vividly remember I told the group that. The mute went back down on the fight. I'm back doing the post-game show, and that is eventually, I mean, I was not Nostradamus. That's eventually what happened, though. He got him into the late rounds, wore him down, and stopped him.
That was sort of like what like a lot of people were thinking was going to be the
Did
way the
you
thing
get
played
that
out.
sense sitting there
Yeah,
around 4, 5, 6? He's gonna get him into the later rounds here
absolutely.
to
I
see what
said that
happens. Yeah, yeah,
100%. He
yeah.
was just going to play with him until he tired him, and he was very accurate with his punches. He didn't look like he'd been off for 2 years. He was also not fighting an actual professional boxer. For purposes of to know how dominant he was on the scorecards, he was ahead 89-81 going into the 10th round. He was at 89-82 on the other scorecard. And on the third scorecard, it was up 87-83. That judge obviously had given Conor the first couple of rounds of the fight. And I always get a kick out of this. They obviously it was not a world championship, but it was a big deal. They fought. The WBC created the money belt because this was called the money fight.
Right.
Because the take
Of
on
all the
money
money.
Mayweather and the money involved in the fight. So I looked this up. It's actually on BoxRec. If you look at their little wiki of the fight, the vacant WBC money belt consisting of 1.5 kilograms of 24 karat gold,
Ooh.
3,360 diamonds, 600 sapphires, and 160 emeralds. That's some heavy duty
What's
stuff.
the estimated worth of that belt?
I have no idea.
1.5 kilos of gold alone is worth thousands and thousands and
Of
thousands of
course,
dollars. So
it was a beautiful belt because
what
Mauricio Suleiman was sort of showing it around during the build up to the fight. He would
you
have
didn't
it in
get
the
a
media
selfie.
center.
Selfies weren't big back in the late
I,
2010s.
I
You didn't get a
actually
selfie with the
think
belt?
I think I have a photo of myself with that belt.
Uh-oh. You got to dig that
I might
up,
have
and we
to
got to
dig
see
that
it on
out.
social media. All right, my question one final time on all the money every which direction. Was it a 50-50 split, or did Floyd get like 75 or 80% of
That's a
all
good
that
question.
cash you were talking
Yeah, I
about?
don't
You don't
remember
know?
what the split was, but certainly Floyd got the lion's share of the money. I mean, he wouldn't have done the deal without it. But I mean, one of the reasons that made it was a little bit difficult to make is because Conor at that time was under contract to UFC, so he had to do a deal with Dana White to allow him to participate in the fight. So UFC obviously was paid on the fight also,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Dana was part of the promotion to some degree, which certainly helped it. Showtime rolled out all the bells and whistles to put on the event, and it was just a mega fight. And Floyd wins the fight. He retires 50-0. I still to this day, get people saying, well, he's not really 50-0 because the McGregor fight shouldn't have counted. Well, it does count, whether you like it or not. So he finished his career 50-0. He's obviously had a number of exhibition matches since then, but the official mark goes down 50 wins, 0 losses, and 27 knockouts. And he finished it off, with
And it
the second
opened the
biggest payday of his career.
floodgates. It opened the floodgates for different UFC fighters to realize, yeah, I can make 10 or 20 times more money by getting into a big time
And
boxing
nothing
match.
has ever come even close. The next
Not
biggest,
not close to that, no.
the next biggest crossover is probably Francis Ngannou against Tyson Fury, and then Francis Ngannou against Anthony Joshua. And those were huge fights financially because Saudi and Turkey paid them a tremendous amount of money, and there was obviously interest. But I still, as big as those were, I don't think they come close in terms of the level of, at least in the United States anyway, the
Oh,
mania
yeah.
surrounding this fight, the anticipation. This was not just the boxing press writing about it and the UFC press writing and talking about it. This was mainstream, like
Oh, yeah.
New York Times, not even like boxing writing, but in terms of like a lifestyle type story or the scene type story. Was on the 60 Minutes. Or one of the big news
Yeah.
programs did something about it. I forget which one it was, but this was just a huge deal. I mean, I can remember Pacquiao Mayweather was the biggest one ever, but like at ESPN, the amount of coverage that we had was remarkable. Like we would have these like calls with the teams. We had our little boxing group, but then we're in with the MMA people also, and you got all of us on site together doing our parts, guys that covered MMA, guys that cover boxing. Like I was like on the same, like
On the panel with them. Right.
I had gotten involved with doing things. Like I was covering boxing for ESPN, and Ariel Helwani, who's not at ESPN any longer, he's out doing his own thing, but he was there doing MMA stuff. So we had to collaborate on some certain things and got to know each other a bit, working together. It was all because of this fight, because it was such a mania. And of course, in the end, the greatest thing that came from it, besides all the money everybody made, was I got called the boxing guy by Conor McGregor.